There's been concern about a rapid increase in gang activity in the Western Cape. It comes at a time when the province is also seeing a surge in COVID-19 infections. How has lowering the lockdown to alert level 3 impacted on crime activity? We're joined by the Western Cape Community Safety MEC, Albert Fritz. Good evening and thank you so much for your time tonight, Mr. Fritz. Now, the Western Cape, at least pockets of it, have long suffered with high incidence of crime. And I wonder, what have you found during this lockdown period? Have you been able to get a handle on things, especially those areas which are gang infested?
Good evening, Cathy, and good evening to all the viewers. I want to start by saying the first 2 weeks of lockdown, when it started, we saw an absolute reduction in murders in the province. In fact, the normal number of murders per week in the province used to be 110, 112, up to 120. The first week we saw a reduction to right down to 23 murders. The second week it went even further to, I think it was 18 murders. And that was the kind of decrease in murders we saw throughout the lockdown period. One big contributor to that was, of course, that you had a far more visible policing, and you had the South African Defence Force policing in those areas, in our gang hot areas. But we also had another very important contributing element, and that was that no liquor was allowed to be sold during those periods. So you had no taverns open, you had no shebeens open, you had nothing also in our big towns, you know, in the more bigger kind of towns where people could get access to alcohol. And that kind of taking away of alcohol during that period completely reduced even the impact on hospitalization. No one came into our trauma units. Our mortuaries were kind of empty. And I want to just make this point. The first week after lifting, and let me call it the ban of alcohol for a lack of a better word, from the 1st to the 7th, which was from the Monday to the Sunday, we have seen 118 murders only in the first week. And so one of the issues that we are arguing is that you can clearly see a link, and in fact what the lawyers will call a causal link, between alcohol in general and the consumption and sale. Don't forget the sale and distribution of alcohol, because if you don't have sale and distribution, you won't have consumption. And so you have that link between the high murder rate in the province and the fact that alcohol is kind of freely available. Even when it's only from Monday to Thursday.
Sure. Given the fact that you've been able to make that link so clearly, are you anywhere near the point where the Eastern Cape Premier Oscar Mabuyane is, where he wants alcohol to be banned in his province simply because of the unintended consequences? Would that be a response to this conversation, or what are the alternatives?
That would be a very tempting response, but we must be careful not to go into a police state, you know, where the state determines everything. But I think one of the issues that we need to say, we need to speak far more to our liquor traders. And I'm talking here specifically and especially to our township liquor traders. We need to get an agreement with all of our liquor. We need to work with them and to see how do we get the behavior change? How do we get people to adhere to just simple rules? When you must close, you close at 7 o'clock, if it's 7 o'clock. When you open from 9 to 5 and not longer. And I want to say in this regard, we have had 65 cases by the Western Cape Liquor Authority that has been dealing with traders who illegally traded during the lockdown period, and traders who traded outside the time that they're supposed to trade. And 8 of those cases, of those 65 cases, are with the police for criminal investigation. But they will also have up to about 32 of those licenses revoked for people who will never be able to trade. Now, you don't want to go there. You want to talk to the liquor traders. You want to talk to all our people who are seeing it as an income and see how do we all work together for responsible kind of behavior, but how do we also work together to stop the infection, in this province, to really assist with fighting the COVID virus, and to also stop the violent crime in this province. And I think those are the kind of issues that more kind of educational, developmental approach than just always a hard-handed policing approach.
So then give us a sense of how enforced then the presence of police and the SANDF has been in the Western Cape. And, we've seen incidents where they have been heavy-handed, and it wouldn't be the first time that Cape Town itself is exposed to that. We, of course, heard similar reports when the Defence Force was initially deployed to some areas, including I've just forgotten the name, including Mannenberg, including Mannenberg, that of course have also been affected. So speak to us about those elements that are seeping into the communities.
Yes, so the one part, I must say, that we immediately did was to get our police ombudsman to investigate all those complaints of police high-handedness or police abuse, and not in a way of always wanting to attack, because it's very few policemen who's actually high-handed. It's very, very few. So really to assist the police commissioner in the province to get to the raw, the rotten apples within the police. With the army, we had a bit more difficult because we don't have any jurisdiction over them. We can't exercise any oversight over them. But I want to also say we have had a very constructive relationship. And let me just give you a practical example. We have used our Department of Health is working very closely with the provincial police in this province. And they sat around the table because our police stations were ravaged by the virus. Many of our police stations had to close over this period, and that's another element for those kind of increase in those violence. But we sat around the table and worked out with the department, the health department and the police, how to better use the shift system, how to better use the availability of staff. And I must say our General Matakata in this province is doing an amazing job. She's doing really a great job. And so all those small little blocks of building blocks and civil society coming on board. You remember now the community police forums and the neighborhood watches and the rural watches, the farm watches, all of them will now again be allowed to patrol. That will all help in fighting the scourge of violence, in fighting crime, in fighting the virus, because this is even more dangerous. I mean, the virus is really, it just creeps on you and you actually die if you don't take absolute precautions.
All right.